All right, and we're live.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so I see that you don't have an intro or to bring us in. So as you guys can see, I am
I
DeAndre Marshall, and I'm with
yeah.
Johnny Football this morning. I know I'm a different change of scenery. Drew is taking care of some business, so I'm gonna fill in. I again appreciate the opportunity to come on to the Outsiders podcast and of course be a part of such. So uh I guess I will start out with the Bills versus Cardinals game.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you guys for joining in and all that stuff. Thank you to DeAndre. Please check out his podcast, the I Don't Know podcast. They do some very interesting topics. It's a great thing to listen to. Just try to get some cross promotion going on here with a special guest today. So we're gonna break down the four most relevant fantasy games that we picked this week. So hopefully this will get you some good ideas on who to start, who to sit, things like that. So first, before DeAndre kicks it off with the Bills versus Cardinals, um, this will come into play later on. And I know everyone has at least one of these quarterbacks, but just a fun fact to start off with, um, the quarterbacks right now in 2020 that have the most passing yards of 20 plus yards under pressure. Russell Wilson leads the pack at 4, Justin Herbert at 3, Pat Mahomes at 3, and Matt Ryan at 3. I was surprised to see Matt Ryan because he's not really mobile. But so there you go. Those are your four best quarterbacks under pressure, checking it downfield. So, and one of them is on who we're going to be talking about today. So, I'm going to hand it off to DeAndre. He's going to break down the Bills and Cardinals game for us.
All right, so Bills and Cardinals. The Cards are 5-3 at home this week. Against the Bills, who are 7-2. Traveling is always the toughest running across the country because of the fact of weather and jet lag and everything else. Hopefully the Cards. For the Cards, hopefully saying that this week 9 Josh Allen got back to being the player that he was at the beginning of the season. So hopefully this plays into the Cards favor pretty much. Um with that
So,
also being said, absolute the Seahawks, they were shredded by I want to say the Cardinals, correct?
uh, yes.
Okay. Carved them up with 415 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 138.5. So looks good on paper for them. For the year, you can now officially put Josh Allen on a very short list for MVP, uh, leading his team to a 72 record. Part of his success would be because he has developed a chemistry with Stephon Diggs that has been untouchable. Some would say it would be crazy chemistry. So that's something to be looked at. He also leads his team in receptions with 63 and with 813 yards on the season with 3 TDs. As long as no wait, it, it's a long shot, but if he can get average receptions in this game, in every game, he'll be close to 1,800 yards on the season from what I'm looking at. So, but this task isn't impossible for him to achieve. Diggs has also put up in his fourth game this season over 100 yards, and this season he is well over. No, He's had more than 37 targets.
He's at 37 targets more than any other.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
next closest Bill player has 37 targets less than him. so he by far leads the pack in receiving targets. So
Right. Um, and then with all those numbers from the Bills, it just doesn't make too like it. Hold on. Oh, okay. So these numbers all can pretty much tell you that not too many people or one wouldn't have too much confidence in the Cardinals, especially with last week's performance against Tua, where they allowed him to have the best game of his season with 248 yards, 2 TDs, no interceptions, and average 8.9 yards per throw. And a passer rating over 120. This could have been a fluke because of the defensive performance for the Cards. The pass defense posted 11th
sorry, I misspelled that. Best
yeah
passer.
with a 92.2, and as well as allowing the opposing quarterback to be able to complete more 63.9, so really almost 74% of their passes. The area that the Cards could be in for a struggle with tonight would be defending against the run. Overall for 2020, they are allowing 4.6 yards per carry, roughly about 5 yards, and that's usually with the top backs average, right?
Yeah, the top backs like Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, people like that, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they usually get more towards 5 yards a carry. So getting 4.6 is pretty impressive. So for
And on that note, that's also allowing for 126 yards per game. And that is 22nd in the NFL. Man, wow, that's over 100 yards a game. That's nasty.
sure. Just wait till you get to until we get to the Bengals game. You'll be shocked at how terrible they are. But
Now, usually Bills Mafia, they like to attack through the air. So realistically, the Bills running game for this week, no. So the running game could definitely play into a better factor for them. Granted, it is to be something to be looked at and to be liked for this week. However, with you still need Allen and Diggs to not kind of but to keep their thing going in order for everything else to flow, which that makes sense. The better that the better they dominate the run makes the defense become more vulnerable, which then allows the deep play action pass to be more efficient. Over the past 3 games, the Cards have increased their allowed rushing yards to 129 per game, and that's terrible. Where where the Cards have the advantage though is where they have a rushing offense, and the Bills rushing defense for 2020 has only allowed 3.9 yards per carry, which is pretty decent. However, they are ranked 25th in the league in the NFL, allowing just over 100 yards, or just at 100 yards with 100.3. And that's rushing yards. The rushing offense is the rushing offense for the Cards attacking the defense with 5.2 yards per carry, which is second in the NFL, and 169.2 rushing yards per game. So a huge part of those impressive numbers is because of Kyler Murray posting in 2020 with 7.1 yards per carry and 67.9 rushing yards per game and 8 rushing TDs. Last week alone he had it looks like he rushed 11 times for 106 at 9.6 yards per carry and had a TD. Wait, I thought because that's Cardinals. All right, bet. Mm-hmm. Not only did he tear it up on the ground, he actually showed that he was also able to pass that game, posting 283 yards, and that's 283 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and a crazy 150 passer rating. Yeah. The Bills have a great offense, and you can obviously put up points in bunches, but where they have issues at is on defense. For 2020, they have allowed 4.6 yards per carry and currently are ranked 22nd in the league. And that is allowing 125.9 rushing yards per game. Y'all, pardon me. I'm reading here. So the Bills.
This is kind of impromptu, so
yeah. So bear with me. The Bills' pass defense isn't very much supportive either. They are also ranked 20th in the NFL, allowing 97.3 yards and completing and a completion rate of somewhere around 67.8. And that is,
to put that into perspective, that's only 7.2% away from allowing 3/4 of every pass in every game to be completed. So, like, if you threw 10 passes, like about
7 of them.
So, yeah, about roughly 7 of them are going to be completed all the time. So, yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah.
Let me get back in here. The teams have similarities. With that being said, they're especially in their passing rush, the Bills are getting 55 QB hits for 2020. It puts them 7th in the league. So when you say 55 hits, that means that that the Bills quarterback is being hit 55 times, right?
Yeah, exactly. Josh Allen is getting touched 55 times.
And they have 24 sacks in 2020, which is tied for 6th. The Cards come in having 22 sacks, which is tied for 8th. The Cards have a couple of advantages in this game. They have only allowed 10 sacks a game, which puts them 10th in the league. And while the Bills still have, they have allowed Josh Allen to be sacked. Go ahead.
My bad. I miswrote that. They've only allowed 10 sacks on the season, which is 10th in the NFL. Sorry, my fault.
You're good. Josh Allen has still only been sacked 7 times, and it's just week 9. So it's averaging about 1.5, almost 2 sacks per game, if my math is right.
Yeah, but he actually got sacked 7 times just in week 9.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I read that wrong. My fault.
No, you're good.
So in that area where it really counts, the Bills hold the advantage. But this has trap game written all over it. So hope the Cards pull it out.
Yeah, so just the reason why I call it a trap game is on paper the Bills look like they can just explode in bunches and bunches and bunches. Mm-hmm. they can get that play action going because the Cardinals are so bad at running the ball, or I mean at defending against running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bills have, Singletary, they have Zach Moss, and Josh Allen can run too.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can get that running game going, and that RPO and stuff like that, the 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 Cardinals have to kind of respect that. And with Stephon Diggs being the deep threat that he is, that can turn into very much an explosive offense really quickly. And once that happens, the Cardinals got a big uphill battle to climb. But where the Cardinals can kind of even the odds is that they have Kyler Murray, who's even more dynamic of a quarterback than Josh Allen, because he can throw, and he's got eight touchdown runs on the year,
Mm-hmm.
just by himself. He seems to be getting smarter and better every week. I thought he was going to be like Lamar Jackson and kind of rely more on his legs than anything, but you can tell Kyler Murray, he'll run when he has to, but he's really looking for the throw, more than not. So I think if the Cards can repeat at least half of what they did,
Mm-hmm.
or half of what happened to Josh Allen last week, like if they can just get to him 4 times in sacks and then get those hits or pressures on Josh Allen,
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be okay. I mean, because their secondary, they have Patrick Peterson, so they can cover Stephon Diggs over the top. They're big running backs that they had. The two main ones, they're not playing, so these numbers were from earlier in the season when they had Kenyon Drake and that other guy, I can't remember, Chase Edmonds.
Okay.
But that now they're gonna have to be impromptu. But who knows? They won last week, so I mean they can obviously put it together. So next we got the Bengals versus the. Obviously the Steelers are gonna win, but this isn't a podcast necessarily about winning and losing. I mean, sometimes we do pick a winner or a loser, how we think the game is going to go. The key to what we do is we try to find the games that are fantasy relevant, the people to pick up, the people not to pick up, the people to sit and start and maybe go after in free agency after this game, people to watch, things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
just to start off with that, for this game, the key to the game is going to be the defense of the Steelers. They are undefeated, but they have only won the last 3 games by a total of 9 points, exactly 3 points per game for the past 3 games. And that's not because they're having great defensive stands either. The teams have scored a lot on them, but the Steelers are still, number one in every category. But they're going against Joe Burrow that plays way beyond his years. He plays way more experience than he really is. But this is going to be Joe Cool's biggest test yet. I call him Joe Cool because he can't get rattled at all. I know Joe Montana and Joe Namath had that nickname too, but
Mm-hmm.
we're just passing it down. Steelers are top 5 in quite a few very important passing defensive categories this year for the 2020 season, which which definitely predicts that Joe Burrow is going to have a rough time today. But some of the categories that they're almost the tops in, they only allow a 79.7 passer rating, which is second in the NFL. They only allow 241.6 passing yards a game, which is fifth in the NFL. They're allowing only a 56.7 completion percentage for opposing quarterbacks, which is first in the NFL. They are tied for first in the NFL with 11 interceptions. They're first in the NFL in 32 sacks. And finally, they're first in the NFL with 83 QB hits, and I think they're about second or third in blitzing, defensive blitzing in the NFL. So they're absolute monsters. Um, one thing the Steelers do well, um, uh, one of the things the Steelers do well on defense that is going to terrorize Burrow is um, that the Bengals are allowing 28 sacks this year. That's tied for 29th in the NFL, which is bad in that category. Despite that, Burrow has shown that he can still produce and does not get rattled by getting harassed by the defense. He's still for the year. He's thrown 11 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, averaging over 280 passing yards a game with a passer rating of 91.4, which, and this is very, very decent numbers for a rookie QB in that division, specifically where they have to play the Ravens and the Steelers and stuff like that. Um, and and the injuries that they've had to the offense. The offensive line, I think they've lost 5 offensive linemen. They lose Joe Mixon at least 5 times a year, stuff like that. So despite losing as many games as the Bengals have, it's kind of the reverse of the Steelers. The Steelers have won all the games, but the past 3 games they've only won by 3 points. The Bengals have lost like 5 games or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
but they have only lost at most by 4 points per game, showing that Joe Burrow is having an instant impact to turning this team around. Even though the Steelers are undefeated, they share something with the Bengals. The 3 games have been decided by 3 points each game. The Steelers have just figured out how to pull it off at the end, mostly because of the experience and chemistry of Big Ben and Mike Tomlin. They've been playing together for years and years and years. The Bengals defense will definitely be tested this week. Ben is coming off a game where he just threw for 306 yards, 3 touchdowns with a 113.8 passer rating. Also for 2020, he's thrown 16 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions with a 101.8 passer rating. The crazy part about that is, well, we'll get into that later. Despite the terrible rushing job of the Steelers last week, James Conner, he did rush 9 times for 22 yards for only 2.4 yards per carry. Despite that, and despite the terrible rushing job, Big Ben's overall numbers is 16 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. It could be even better because, believe it or not, their run game has not given them a reason to put much physical stress on Big Ben, who's aging. And I'm sure they made a conscious effort to bolster that running game so Ben could be healthier going into the playoffs, and also maybe protect him in years in the future because he may not be playing that much longer. So I don't see the Steelers have much resistance against the Bengals on either side of the ball. As the entire team is concerned, even though some players will have fantasy relevance just because of sheer mandatory volume, like Tyler Boyd, Giovanni Bernard, Joe Burrow, obviously, AJ Green, people like that. They're still going to get their looks, their targets. So that doesn't necessarily mean don't start them. But if you have better options that aren't playing the Steelers, those are probably the guys I would go with. But if it's Tyler Boyd versus I don't know, Tyler Boyd versus Mike Williams for the Chargers, I would probably still stick with Tyler Boyd. So it just depends on what your roster is. If it's PPR, if it's standard scoring, targets matter. So in PPR, the targets definitely matter. So, and then coming up next, we got the Seahawks and the Rams. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, I'll take that one.
Okay.
So Seahawks and Rams. It's very important to note that the Rams are coming off of a bye week, so they are so they should be well rested. This gives them extra time to prepare for the game as well. With this, we stated earlier that the Seahawks did not perform well against Josh Allen and the Bills, allowing 415 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, they've got some bouncing back to do. Literally, no team in the NFL in 2020 has given up more passing yards than the Seahawks with 362.1. This puts them dead last in the league. And that's really weird to hear, especially. But I'm thinking more. I'm thinking more offense than I am defense here, because the Legion of Boom is gone. They've been removed for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
With that being said, they've also been allowed 98.2 as a passer rating. They are also giving teams confidence to average 8 yards per pass, per passing attempt, and are giving up nearly 70 completions and to the opposing QBs, almost again 3/4 of passes for the other team. They are thrown against 3/4 of the passes thrown against them are actually being completed. So, good news for Jared Goff is since the last week that we've seen him is that he since we've seen him in week 8 is that he went 35 for 61 for 1 TD, 2 interceptions, and has a passer rating of 65.9. So that being Goff's MO for all of this year, how that's been Goff's kind of shtick all year. However, there are games where he sheds a defense, and he has games where he looks lost. It's accurate. Regardless, he has he has a fantasy QB numbers of 13 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, and which puts him at a 94.6 passer rating, and 7.6 yards per attempt, which is good for fantasy owners that play in leagues that give them bonus points for big plays. Because of this type of because of the type of passing yards attempt, because of the passing yards attempt number, usually this usually means big chunks, big plays. The wow factor plays into those leagues. However, thankfully for you Rams, the Rams running backs they haven't needed to really rely on Goff as much to be there to be I'm lost here. Hold on. They really haven't had to really rely on Goff because their committee of running backs have put up 4.4 rushing yards per carry and 137 rushing yards per game, which puts them in 7th, which is slick dissing and is just better than average. So I see the Rams struggling this game with Seattle's defense. I see.
As far as running the ball, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And this then makes Goff beatable because if you can't get the running game off, of course you can't develop a passing game. Seattle is only allowing 3.7 yards per carry and 96 yards per game. This puts them 4, so they're in the top 5. Bad news for the Seahawks is that their once potent running game has been struggling without Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde. Last week, the Seahawks were only able to put up 17 rushes for 57 yards, which averaged a minimal and dismal 3.7 yards per carry with only 2 touchdowns. Without that balance, you can see how that has taken a toll on Russell Wilson, only throwing for 390, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and a passer rating of 94.6. Which these are great numbers for 90% of QB of NFL quarterbacks. But with the seasons that Russ has had, with the season that Russ has been having, this is a little bit steep back in the passer rating and interceptions. Not to mention that he is second in interceptions.
It's his second. It's his second game this season with 2 interceptions in one game. So
there you go.
yeah.
However, Russ. I don't know why I said Ross. Russ is still Russ is still overall having a historical season. With this, and those numbers are he's got 28 touchdowns, which puts him in first. You've got 8 interceptions, which then puts his passer rating at over 100, sitting at 117.1. And this week will definitely be a tough test for Russ. If the run game still can't get going, he's facing the LA Rams pass defense that is only allowing 84 yards, 84.2 yards passer rating, which puts them at 5th, and only 197.1 passing yards per game, which then puts them in 2nd. Not only do they not only do they know how to make a living off of the opposing offense, off of the opposing offense's backfield with 25 sacks in 2020, which putting them in 5th. They are none of them are coming from Aaron Donald, which is a whole man.
Yeah, he is, for sure.
Unfortunately, Seattle has had issues with sacks this year, allowing 24 sacks in 2020, and so far that has got them tied for 24th. And this will be the game that either increases Russ's. This game will either help Russ improve his stock for MVP, or it takes him out of the conversation, or takes him further away from the conversation.
Yeah.
I'll say
that moves Josh Allen and Kyler Murray and Drew Brees kind of up more into the conversation, I think, if Russ has a bad game, for sure.
Yeah. I think now I'm just gonna give a little bit of personal opinion here. I think honestly, when you look at the first 2 quarterbacks of these 2 games, especially when you talk about Russ and you talk about Kyler Murray patterns his game after Russ to me. But he's got youth on his side, so that's why I think that conversation is so back and forth right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, Russ is a known killer. Let's not look past that. But when you got somebody up and coming and you don't have that reliable defense to kind of lean back on, it does put more pressure on him as being that guy.
Yeah, I'm like you, what you said earlier. Like, you don't know how their pass defense is so bad. I don't know how their defense is still bad, because Jamal Adams, who they got for the safety spot, was supposed to just. I mean, he's a killer, and he was a killer on the Jets. Like, he did fantastic things for them, and then he up and goes to Seattle. I was like, well, it's over with for sure. We got a answer. I'm sorry, we got a question. Claypool or Godwin, non PPR. I'm gonna go with yeah, I'm gonna go with
Claypool.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Claypool. For sure, just because Ben's definitely playing. I know he had COVID and a sprained MCL, but they definitely confirmed that he was playing today, unless they lied. And Claypool's dangerous, so Ben can throw 5 touchdowns in any single game, and Claypool runs too, being a wide receiver. So,
Hmm.
anyway, and with standard leagues, this is why I play PPR, because in standard leagues you need big plays or you don't really get much. PPR, it's more realistic because it's the more important players, the more targets, the more catches they get. Anyway,
Hmm.
so not to take up too much more of anybody's time. I got a couple more things left, so I'm gonna go over the final game that I think is gonna be. It's not only important for one of these teams in real life, but I think it's also important to know where people stand in this game if you watch the game, because there's some positions where you thought they were pretty much short up. Like they were starting, they were the guy, but then things happened on both sides, and now we're trying to figure out who's doing what. So I got the Bucks versus the Panthers. First, I want to say, as we all know, if you watch Tom versus Time, if you just know anything about Tom Brady, um, when Tom gets embarrassed, he becomes dangerous. He works that much harder. He studies that much harder. Practices that much harder. He doesn't handle as much ish in practice from his players as he would usually do. So to back up that statement, believe it or not, the 4 seasons that Tom got embarrassed like he did this past week, like when the Titans embarrassed them in Nashville and so on and so forth, and the Chiefs embarrassed them the first game of the season before the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Um, every time he's gotten embarrassed, he's gone on to win the Super Bowl. That's just fact. The X factor you always have to account for is Tom's inner competitor and his dedication to preparing. And you know he has kicked it up for this week after throwing 0 touchdowns last week. So be prepared for a laser focused and pissed off Tom Brady.
Cycle time is back.
Yeah, right. Um, so the Panthers are also they're something about them. They're trying to snap a 4 game losing streak, where they've played close and respectable, all losses being by 8 points or fewer. And also, unfortunately, not only are they on a losing streak, but Christian McCaffrey hurt his shoulder and he's out again. So, but in this game with Christian McCaffrey back, Teddy Bridgewater found his groove. Again, throwing for 310 yards for 2 touchdowns, for a 113.3 passer rating against a tough Chiefs secondary for sure. However, with CMC missing time, Bridgewater has seemed to find a 3-headed wide receiver monster in Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, and Curtis Samuel. I feel like DJ Moore should get more love. He is definitely the third head in that monster,
No
but
question.
he's the bigger one. He's the stronger one. Curtis Samuel's the small, quick guy. Robbie Anderson's the lanky, tall dude that runs the the fly routes. I just don't know if Teddy likes that intermediate route that DJ Moore gives him. It's
Hmm.
either the short open space like Curtis Samuel, or he tries to go deep to Robbie Anderson. But anyway, DJ Moore performs when he throw to him. He's had some drop problems, but I think he's gotten over that. But anyway, um, last week, like I said with Curtis Samuel, he got 9 receptions on 13 targets, which tells you he's definitely one of the main dudes. And then Robbie Anderson, he got 9 targets, made 9 receptions for all of those for 105 yards and 1 touchdown. So again, if you're in PPR, 9 receptions plus 105 yards, that's already 19 points right there, plus 6 for a touchdown. You got 25 points right there. So even though CMC got hurt, what he did in the game before that was fantastic. He made a triumphant return, going back to who he really is. He had 10 targets, got all 10 of the receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. So, and like I said, unfortunately, he got a minor shoulder injury, and he may miss a week or so. Tampa is coming back, or is coming into the game looking a little vulnerable against the pass, allowing Drew Brees to throw for 4 touchdowns and have 135.2 passer rating. Even though on the year, Tampa is 9th in the NFL in passer rating allowed with 89.6, and they only allow 265 passing yards per game. So this was kind of an anomaly somehow, some way. I don't know how. Apparently the Saints have figured it out. But even though they got shredded in the passing game, the defense still showed promise. They still showed that they're one of the best overall run defenses in the NFL. With Alvin Kamara being one of the running backs they went against. They only allowed 3.3 rushing yards per carry, which is second in the NFL. And then per game, they only allow 77.9 yards per game, which is first in the NFL. The person to see if he can punch through that run defense of Tampa is going to be Mike Davis, who's proven to be a great handcuff. For those of you that don't know, handcuff is a backup that you get if your starting running back is kind of injury prone, but he's still too good to let go, like Lev Bell or Christian McCaffrey or whatever. But Mike Davis, since he's been the starting back, he has accumulated 4.2 rushing yards per carry, which is good for our RB2. He's already gotten 353 yards. As you know, he's really good in the receiving game. They do some of the Christian McCaffrey routes for him, being a bigger dude anyway. And he has 2 touchdowns in that short time he stepped up while CMC's been out. Where the Panthers have the advantage is their rush defense. Last week, they only allowed 12 rushes for 30 yards. So when I say rush, I mean they're like running, not their pass rush. So they only allowed 12 rushes for 30 yards and 2.5 yards per carry against the Kansas City Chiefs and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was or still is in the top 5 of rushing leaders this season in the NFL. So he held them to 30 yards. So on the other side, Tampa had a historic rushing game against the Saints last week. They got a total of 5 rushes for 8 yards and 1.6 yards per carry. One of those rushes being a kneel down. That it's the lowest rushing performance in the NFL in 87 years. Tom also struggled last week with the pass, throwing for 209 yards, 3 interceptions, and a 40.4 passer rating. Even though the Panthers got torn apart by Mahomes last week, Mahomes got 3 touchdowns, 121.7 passer rating. On the 2020 season, they only allow 94.7 passer rating, 6.9 passing yards per attempt as well, and that's 7th in the NFL. So yeah, the breakdown on the games. As far as you guys know, I do the top 5 wide receiver cornerback matchup. So it's not necessarily who's going to score the most points in a game wide receiver wise. It's just who has the best matchup in the game if you have someone on waivers or trying to figure out who your flex or who wide receiver 2 or whoever's going to be. So The top wide receivers, the top 5 wide receivers this week. So number 1 is going to be Terry McLaurin. He's going against Desmond Trufant in Dallas. Number 2 is going to be, sorry, I'm all over the place. Number 2 is going to be Tyler Lockett. He's going against Troy Hill in the slot. Number 3, we got Chris Godwin going against Cole Elder. Darius Slayton, he's going against Avonte Maddox. And then we have Hunter Renfrow going against Essane Basie. Alec, I know we said Godwin, but he does have a favorable matchup, yes. But he's also, the reason why I'm still saying Claypool is because he's sharing targets for Gronk. He's sharing targets with Mike Evans and now Antonio Brown. So I know PPR, I said targets matter. They matter anywhere. They just matter most in PPR because those receptions get you extra points. But if you're fighting for 3 against 3 other people, plus the sometimes check down plays that Tom throws to Ronald Jones, his chances are going to go down. So that's why we say Claypool, because he gets more chances. He even runs the ball sometimes. So anyway, back to the list. So it's a 3-way tie for the 5th ones. So I already said Hunter Renfrow. I got Keenan Allen going against Nick Needman in the slot, and then I also have Cooper Kupp going against Ugo Amadi in the slot as well. So it seems like the slot receivers are going to have a good day today. Heck, if you want to throw another one in there, Stephon Diggs, he would definitely be the 6th best. I put him at his advantage at 25% because he is going against Patrick Peterson. So that is a pretty stiff matchup, but Stephon Diggs is good enough to do that. So there's that one. The tight end matchup, again, we're going to do the top 5 as we always do. So as always, even though he has yet to prove me right, and I will continue to put him on the list until he does, Gronk has the best matchup this week. He's going against Shaq Thompson from Carolina. Second best is going to be Mo Alley Cox. He's really stepped up since Jack Doyle got hurt. He's going against Kenny Vaccaro. Actually, wait, that game already played. Sorry. So we won't count him. So number 2 is going to be Jared Cook against Dre Greenlaw. Jared Cook for the Saints going against Dre Greenlaw, the linebacker. Jared Cook's really good against linebackers, pretty quick. Excuse me. So tied for 3rd, we got Darren Waller and Mike Gesicki. Darren Waller is going against Josie Jewell. He's a linebacker. Obviously, he can destroy the linebacker. Mike Gesicki going against Kazir White, another linebacker. Again, Mike Gesicki can kill linebackers, no problem. And then Max Williams for Arizona. He's going against A.J. Klein from Buffalo, the linebacker. To be 100% honest, I don't know about either one of those 2 guys, but I know usually tight ends that are more pass catchers are really good against linebackers. They're hard to cover. So
just to chime in for me, and with that matchup is really going to be interesting, and I'm glad that you brought that up, is because I think Klein has a breakout, not really a breakout game, but he definitely plays a better game today than he has in the past for that linebacker position.
Yeah, exactly. And then just for shits and giggles, I got 6th on my list. Robert Tonyan going against Josh Jones for Jacksonville. He's a safety. So they're going to have to make some hard decisions sometimes whether to walk that safety all the way up there to cover that tight end, and then they have that top side of that field kind of open, or they back a linebacker or a safety or a corner into that area, then they have that little mid area to throw to, like out in the flats and stuff. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. I'd like to see how that goes. I think Gesicki might have a pretty decent game because of that.
Yeah.
That's why I got him starting this week for me.
Yeah, I don't see them. I don't see them leaving over the top empty. What I do see, what I
Yeah,
do think is that they play the flat game.
yeah, for sure. That like you said, I can't see an NFL team. Now, granted, we did have the Colts do that one punt or that one like fourth down play where they literally just put everybody on one side except the center and the quarterback, and they just got absolutely demolished against the
Exactly.
Patriots. So let me see what else we got here. Um, okay, cool. Um, yeah, all right. So that is it. We got everything. I was just checking my list one more time. And plus, we got just in time for you guys to have finished up your waiver pickups and all that stuff. So we'll let you get to the game. Again, thank DeAndre for coming in, filling in the clutch. We got some stuff going on, but helped out a lot, bud. And again, if you haven't seen it yet, which you better have, or I'm going to be very upset, check out his page, the IDK podcast. I don't even know. I keep saying the I don't know podcast just because that's what IDK sounds like to me. But I could be saying it wrong the whole time.
No, no,
But
no,
it's
no. You,
uh,
you're good. You're good.
all right. But it is technically the IDK podcast.
Podcast. Yes.
They got some killer merch. I got a sweet shirt from them one time, but also they talk about a lot of thought provoking things, a lot of different subjects. Definitely check them out. They're fantastic. So, and I've also been on there a couple of times, so you might see me too as a special
Yeah.
guest.
Most definitely go check out John's episode where we talk about holistic medicine, and then you've actually spotted up for us with some low budget analyst topics as well. So like I said, John, like I said, we're all family here. So
Yeah, and if you want something really funny, check out the episode where I talk about LeBron James and read the comment section. Um, but yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you guys for watching. And I'll let you guys get out of here. And as always, and forever, come with us if you want to win. Peace.
later.